What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 10 Monday Night Football Showdown breakdown here on Sharp Sports Network. I am your host, Joe Bewer, and I'm going to be breaking down this showdown game between the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. Before we get into that, I do just want to do a quick recap of this weekend. Absolutely crushed the main slate. Had Christian Kirk, Golden Tate, Michael Thomas, Jameis Winston, all had phenomenal games. Definitely helped us push us into the cash line. With cash was roughly around 150 points for us on our lineup today. And then the showdown slate last night, we decided to fade both quarterbacks, go with Amari Cooper at captain with Dalvin Cook, Kyle Rudolph. It was an incredible slate. Scored 125 points. Took down some pretty nice GPP scores last night. So I'm really excited to get into this slate here today. So let's jump right in. It is a very interesting game that we have on our hands here today. San Francisco is pretty much arguably the top defense in the league. They are very stout against the pass. It is going to be a very tough matchup for these Seattle guys, but I think that we have to exploit them in one way or another. So let's jump over to NFL Savant. I want to look at last week's numbers here today because I think they're the most important, with Emmanuel Sanders getting fully integrated into this team. And George Kittle's actually going to be out. So we have an injury on the 49ers. George Kittle is actually going to be out. So you're going to see Ross Dwelley jump into the spot here in place of George Kittle. And he was playing around 75% of the snaps last week, so I expect that to get upgraded to roughly 80 to 90% of the snaps this week. And he received 4 targets. He ran one less route than George Kittle last week, and he's running the same types of routes. So I expect Ross Dwelley to be very popular on the slate today. Emmanuel Sanders leading the team last week with 10 targets. Deebo Samuel receiving 10, and then Dwelley as well. Just so we can get a quick idea, something very good is that Emmanuel Sanders, Deebo Samuel, and Ross Dwelley are all being targeted in the red zone. So when they get close to the red zone, we can expect that we have a very solid chance of receiving a touchdown. Now, the one big question that we've had so far is who's going to lead the rush here for the 49ers. They run the ball 57% of the time. So you have to choose between Tevin Coleman and Matt Breida. Last week, Matt Breida out-touched Tevin Coleman, but Tevin Coleman played more snaps. Tevin Coleman played around 55% of the snaps. Matt Breida played around 45%. So I really expect that to be very similar here today. But the pricing is making it very tough to pay for somebody like Tevin Coleman. So let's jump over here to the Seahawks side. Last week against the Buccaneers, Tyler Lockett got 18 targets, Metcalf 11, Jacob Hollister 7. Chris Carson rushed 15 times, had 100 and something yards, no touchdowns, but still Tampa Bay has a top 2 rushing defense in the league. Chris Carson bullied his way through for 100 yards. With the volume, I expect that to be something very similar here today. Red zone targets went a lot to Tyler Lockett as well. DK Metcalf a few. DK Metcalf had his ceiling game last week, 30 fantasy points on 128 yards and a touchdown. It was a very solid outing. Tyler Lockett's been very consistent as well. He had 2 touchdowns last week on 13 receptions. So it's a little bit of a different defense this week. They ranked top 5 in guarding the wide receiver position. They are the number 1 tight end defense. And they have been exploited against the run, which is something that we're really going to want to target here today. Tyler Lockett is going to see a lot of Emmanuel Mosley. And DK Metcalf is going to see a lot of Richard Sherman as well as Mosley as well. Richard Sherman stays on one side of the field. He doesn't really move. He's not a shadowing cornerback. So DK Metcalf is going to see half Mosley, half Richard Sherman. I expect that Lockett could see some Mosley as well. So for this, it's going to be really tough because both of these cornerbacks are lockdown cornerbacks. They allow the lowest yards per catch in the league. Mosley has filled in for Witherspoon on that injury, and he has played absolutely lights out. Richard Sherman is allowed only 17 catches on the year for 148 yards and around 3 fantasy points per game. That would equivalent to 2 catches for 18 yards for DK Metcalf. So that is not something that we really want to look at, but we have to attack them somehow. So let's start at the top here. Russell Wilson and Jimmy Garoppolo, if we look at flex position, they're $400 apart. I think that if I'm going to pick somebody here, it's going to be Russell Wilson. I think he is a matchup-proof quarterback. We've seen him face some tough defenses before. I think that this is a matchup that the San Francisco defense I don't think has seen yet. I think Russell Wilson has the legs, the mobility to really create his own plays. So I think Russell Wilson has far more upside than Jimmy G today. Jimmy G has a better matchup, but Russell Wilson has far more upside. As far as the receivers, you have Tyler Lockett and Emmanuel Sanders. With the coverage that Lockett's going to be receiving in the slot, I expect him to receive probably 8 targets today. This is going to be a lockdown game for Tyler Lockett, and his price tag at 10.4K, he needs you 20 fantasy points to pay that off, and this matchup does not scream 20 fantasy points by any means. But Emmanuel Sanders' matchup does scream 20 fantasy points for me. Last week, going up against Arizona, 9 catches for 112 yards and a touchdown. That was with George Kittle. Without George Kittle, I expect at least 4 more targets for Emmanuel Sanders. He is my favorite top-priced wide receiver on this slate today. I think he gets you there with ease. They're 15th ranked in the league against the wide receiver position, very middle of the pack. So I expect that he'll probably receive some Trey Flowers coverage. So for me, I think that this is going to be a matchup that we're really going to want to exploit. Now, George Kittle is out, so we'll get to that later on. You'll have Chris Carson, Tevin Coleman, and Matt Breida. Chris Carson for me is an absolute lock. 8,600 is so soft for a player who gets over 20 touches per game guaranteed on the season. 22 touches average per game. He has only had 1 game under 10 fantasy points this entire year. Chris Carson's a workhorse back. Seattle's going to have to control the pace of this game because San Francisco runs the ball so heavily that we're really going to have to kind of workhorse Carson in to get close to that 100-yard mark. Christian McCaffrey torched San Francisco defense. Kenny Drake torched San Francisco defense last week. So the only thing that they're going to have to do is really pitch the ball. Pitching the ball works very well against San Francisco defense that blitzes so heavily. On the other side, though, you have Tevin Coleman and Matt Breida. Tevin Coleman at 8,200 and Matt Breida at 6,200. It's very tough to get Tevin Coleman. I think Matt Breida has more upside, and he gets a 2K price decrease. I think that Matt Breida is a better play here today, and I think he's going to be the running back that I'm going to side with. He has the same catching upside. He has the same running upside as Tevin Coleman, but for 2K cheaper. And then in the middle, you'll see DK Metcalf there, who's going to also receive the same kind of coverage, Richard Sherman, Emmanuel Mosley. So I think you're going to have to go with Metcalf or Lockett here today. So moving down here, you'll see Josh Gordon, 49ers defense, Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is okay at 4.8K. I have no issues with Deebo Samuel at 4.8K. I think he has upside. He's going to receive the same coverage as Emmanuel Sanders, but I think Emmanuel Sanders just has a better matchup. I think I like his target share better. I like everything about him way better. Robbie Gould is going to be interesting. You'll see Chase McLaughlin in here today at 3.6K, same price. I don't mind either kicker, but I would only play one. And then you'll see Ross Dwelley ran 1 less route than George Kittle last week, 4 targets of 29 yards. I expect him to get far more work than that. He's going to be the true tight end this week, and the Seattle Seahawks give up the most points to tight ends in the league, so I really like especially only in the red zone. So I expect that Ross Dwelley should get his work in. So, with that being said, I want to run over some builds here today. I think that I'm only going to be playing one quarterback. Jimmy G does just, for 11K, he needs a 30-point game, and Russell Wilson can get you there. Jimmy G can't. I don't think he's going to be able to get you there in this matchup. So, as far as cash games go, Ross Dwelley makes a lot of sense at captain. He's not super safe, but he's not. His upside is there, and it's going to get you there. He's gonna get some targets. We know that Jimmy G loves the tight end position. It's easy to get him there. So I want to run with a balanced lineup here. I want to run Russell Wilson, and I run a one DK Metcalf. I don't see paying for Tyler Lockett here at 10.4K when you can pay for Emmanuel Sanders at 10.2. I think this makes a lot of sense. And then I want to lock in Chris Carson, and that leaves you 9K. That leaves you a lot to roll with. And you can go Tevin Coleman right here, or you can go with Matt Breida. Either one works. Nothing changes. So I have no issues with that lineup at all. Ross Dwelley makes a lot of sense at this price tag. So I think this could be a lineup for you here. I think you can really put Tevin Coleman, you could drop Matt Breida, you can try and upgrade DK Metcalf, and you could put Tyler Lockett in. This would be another favorite lineup for me right here. I think this makes more sense in cash games if you drop DK Metcalf, put Tyler Lockett in. The targets are going to be the same. So I think you can get Russell Wilson, Lockett, Chris Carson, Emmanuel Sanders, Matt Breida, Ross Dwelley. That makes a lot of sense. You cover all the bases. You get the running side from both. You get the passing side from both. You get a quarterback from the guy with the most upside, and you get a tight end who's in a great position. This is going to be a very, very popular cash build for me this week. So I see that being a very popular option. Now the other option that I do like is Matt Breida at captain. I like Matt Breida at captain a lot. he seems to really torch on these showdowns lates. Whenever we pick Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida goes absolutely off. He has big run upside. I love Matt Breida here today. I love Chris Carson, like I said. I love Russell Wilson, and I love DK Metcalf. This puts you at 6.4K. Dropping in Emmanuel Sanders leaves you 2.7. You get your boy Ross Dwelley, and this would be another incredible build that I have no issues with here today. I think DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett flash the most upside. They have not really let too many deep balls go down the field. Last week against the Arizona Cardinals, Larry Fitzgerald got 3 receptions for 38 yards. Their pass defense is just incredible. So I really want to at least get a part of it because Russell Wilson has to throw somewhere. And I want Emmanuel Sanders on the other side who flashes the most upside for the 49ers. Now let's run over to fantasy draft here where the pricing is a little different. There's no defense. So I think the most sense today is to probably play Chris Carson at captain. He makes a lot of sense here. Russell Wilson, Emmanuel Sanders, and that just leaves you with wanting to put Matt Breida in there. DK Metcalf is already, he's going to be capping you there, so you probably could play Tevin Coleman. You could play something like that, or you could drop both of these guys, play DK, and you're left with $8,000, or you could play Deebo Samuel. You could drop down and even play Ross Dwelley and upgrade DK Metcalf to somebody like Tyler Lockett. Where's Tyler Lockett? Right here. So you could do something like this. Chris Carson, Russell Wilson, Emmanuel Sanders, Tyler Lockett, Ross Dwelley. I have no issues with that at all. But I think you can get a better lineup here. I think that DK Metcalf, I think Russell Wilson makes the most sense here, pairing him with DK, Chris Carson, Emmanuel Sanders, and then Deebo Samuel. This lineup makes a lot of sense here today. Like I said, it's really going to be tough to get a balanced lineup like you can on DraftKings. It's just really hard to get everybody that you want. I mean, you could drop Deebo down, you could drop Emmanuel Sanders, and you could go Tevin Coleman just because you might want a piece of that running game, which I completely understand. Deebo flashes is similar upside, it's just not as safe. But I think Russell Wilson, Chris Carson are at least a lock for me on both sides. On DraftKings, I think Chris Carson, Emmanuel Sanders, and Russell Wilson are the locks. Over here, you can do the exact same thing. You can put Chris Carson in, Russell Wilson, Emmanuel Sanders. You could go Breida, and then you're left with 11,500. You can flash both. You're not going to be able to get the same lineup that you had over there. It just doesn't work. So you're going to have to get some point of this offense. You could go Jacob Hollister if you wanted to. But I think that on DK it's better to play the Showdown. I think you can get definitely a way better balanced lineup. But over here I think you have more upside when you can put whoever you want in captain. But I would definitely put a running back or a quarterback because wide receivers don't get catch points over here on FanDuel. So I think that on DraftKings, it makes a lot of sense with the Ross Dwelley lineup or the Matt Breida lineup. That is where I'm going to be going in cash games today. In tournaments, I would roll with the 49ers defense over here. And in tournaments, I would probably roll with Emmanuel Sanders at captain over here. So with that being said, core is going to be Chris Carson, Russell Wilson, and Emmanuel Sanders. I like all three of those guys. I think they have to be locks. On the Seattle side, I love Tyler Lockett, I love DK Metcalf, and I love Ross Dwelley. I think, and Matt Breida is definitely a nod over Tevin Coleman for me. So I have no issues with any of those guys. I think it's going to be an interesting slate today. Good luck to everybody. Hope everybody crushed this weekend if you're a member. And if you are a member, go ahead and make sure to stay active in the Discord and stay tuned for those cheat sheets later on. And then if you want to become a member, link in the description below. Sign up with Fantasy Draft. Use code SHARPSPORTS. Deposit $10, send me a screenshot, and you can get access to the private cheat sheets for this slate and the upcoming slates this week. Good luck to everybody, and I will see you all tomorrow for the first look video for Week 11. Peace.